Charles Graham Chuck Boyd was born 1938 near the Golden Buckle on the Corn Belt, Rockwell City, Iowa. He was a highly decorated U.S. Air Force 4-star general. Boyd was a combat pilot in Vietnam and is the only Vietnam-era prisoner of war to reach the rank of 4-star general. In his most recent command, he was Deputy Commander-in-Chief, U.S. European Command, Stuttgart-Feinhungen, Germany. He oversaw the daily activities of a unified command with an area of responsibility circling 82 countries and more than 13 million square miles, providing combat-ready forces in support of U.S. commitments to the NATO alliance. The general was Vice Commander of Strategic Air Command's 8th Air Force, Director of Plans at Headquarters U.S. Air Force, and Commander of Air University, with headquarters at Maxwell Air Force Base, before assuming his last position. An Iowa native, General Boyd studied for 2 years at Baylor University in Waco, Texas, before learning about the Air Force's Aviation Cadet Program, which offered him a chance to become an officer and pilot without receiving a degree. He signed up in 1959 and was commissioned as a second lieutenant July of 1960. He served in a variety of assignments in Europe, the Pacific, and the continental United States. He was a command pilot deployed in 1965 to Thailand, where he went on bombing missions in North Vietnam and Laos, flying the F-105 Thunder Chief during the Vietnam War. A nickname often associated with the F-105 was Thud. This strike aircraft, designed for ordnance delivery at high speeds and low altitude, had a design that reflected exactly this. It had powerful acceleration, excellent control authority at high speeds, amazing roll rate, and plenty of choices in bomb options. In 1966, during a mission attack surface-to-air missile site around Hanoi, the North Vietnamese capital, Boyd's F-105 was shot down after repeated passes through enemy fire. Boyd ejected and was captured shortly thereafter. He spent the next 7 years as a POW in North Vietnam, which he described as the defining experience of his life. 2,488 days in confinement in North Vietnam. He was tortured, beaten. He was held at prisons including Ho Lao, a notorious detention center that American POWs nicknamed Hanoi Hilton. For about 18 months, he occupied a cell next to a young naval officer, John S. McCain, and got to know the future U.S. Senator and Republican presidential candidate by communicating through a series of coded taps on the wall. POWs would use this to share stories and information to each other. Much of his captivity was spent in isolation, either in solitary confinement or with a fellow POW or two in his cell. Although, a few months after he was captured, he and about 50 other prisoners were forced to participate in a propaganda demonstration known as the Hanoi March. They were paraded through the North Vietnamese capital, and they were beaten and attacked by civilians along the way. General Boyd was released February 1973, days after the Paris Peace Accords ended U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. By then, he had vowed to return home a different and better man. Due to prolonged malnutrition that he suffered in captivity, he developed vision problems. This became the end of his career as a military aviator. Long after he was released in 1973, he returned to Southeast Asia. He retraced his wartime steps and found himself overwhelmed with memories. For years, he rarely spoke about his experience as a prisoner, saying he wanted to look forward, not back. Boyd received the Air Force Cross, the highest decoration after the Medal of Honor. In 1973, he resumed his Air Force career. Boyd received his Bachelor of Arts degree in 1975 and his Master's of Arts degree in 1976, both from the University of Kansas. His military education included attending Air War College at Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama in 1977. In 1986, he participated in the program for senior executives in the national and international security at Harvard University. He served as Vice Commander of the 8th Air Force, Commander of Air University, Deputy Commander-in-Chief, U.S. European Command, until his retirement as a four-star general, August of 1995. After his retirement, Boyd also worked as a senior vice president of the Council of Foreign Relations as its Washington program director. He also served as a director at various defense and intelligence-oriented companies. He was CEO of the Business Executives for National Security and was chair of the Center for the National Interest think tank. Air Force Association President, retired Lieutenant General Bruce Orville Wright, said, General Boyd was an inspirational figure in his warrior spirit, his incredible endurance under brutal conditions, and his intellectual gifts to the national security community. He was an exemplary leader for generations of airmen. He inspired us in every encounter. On March 23rd, 2022, General Boyd passed away in Haymarket, Virginia, due to complications of lung cancer at the age of 83. These are Interesting Things with JC.